Okay, great. So for our inductive learning, we get to tackle ki tavo. So last week was ki teitze, when you go out, and this week is ki tavo, when you come in. Avinu Malkeinu, toda lecha lechol talmudai, our Father and our King. So grateful for all of my students. King Hiratzon, ki hayom hazeh, אנחנו כי נחיה ללמוד טוב בעיניך את כל דבריך אשר אתה רוצה כי אנחנו נראה בזכות ישוע המשיח. Alright. Alright, let's get started. So here we are. We're in Deuteronomy chapter 26 verse 1. Remember, it's open microphone. You guys speak up as you like. Happy to see you all here. It was close. It was close. We barely got the minion. But here we are. Okay. We had, by the way, if you didn't notice, last week I uploaded kind of, I think maybe 4 videos at the last moment. So we have several videos from last week. I think maybe, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think maybe 8 videos we have working through the Aliya. So, yeah, you've got plenty to do as far as watching and continuing on. One moment, please. All right, so there's plenty. And it's okay to, if you find it helpful to work through that stuff, even when it's out of sync, that's not the Aliya that we're currently on, that's fine. I'm considering this next year switching to the Triennial Cycle. I'm not sure. I think that might be interesting for our Hebrew learners to kind of have to be able to work through the complete amount every week. So the Triennial Cycle, if you're not aware, most Jews today, we do the Babylonian Cycle, which is from the Jews in Babylon. We were stuck in Babylon, and this is when this was implemented, to read the entire Torah once a year, right? And of course that's how our Aliyot, they come from that. There's another cycle which was called, before the state of Israel existed again, which was called the Palestinian Cycle. Right? No, we're not talking about Arabs or something. We're talking about the cycle that was in the land of Israel. That Torah reading cycle was it was a little less than 3.5 years. So in about 3.5 years, you'd go through the Torah one time. As you can imagine, this changes the way you look at the text. Right? If you are reading from the Torah over such a long period, you get to focus in on many of the details. I think it's good for memorizing and remembering things to go at this slower pace. So I'm considering this next year coming up, this next Jewish calendar year coming up in September, of either doing both or changing to the so-called Palestinian cycle. It's interesting. In the text itself, we still have, it's called a sidrot. We still have the sidrot, which are the readings, and it's actually marked in our tradition, in the Masorah, what those readings were from the time when Yeshua walked the earth. And of course, this is the reading cycle he would have done with his disciples, which is fascinating when you realize that his ministry was 3 years long. It's my belief, I cannot prove it, but it's my belief that he went through the Torah with his disciples over that 3-year long period, 3 year plus change, right? That he went through an entire reading. Who knows? Maybe he didn't. It doesn't mean that they didn't do supplementary readings as well. But so I'm considering doing this next Rosh Hashanah. I'd be interested to hear your opinion, if you guys would like that, if you're excited about that or not. I was thinking it's something we could do together. Yeah, you like?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I actually I was about to suggest that we do it on the 3 year, because
Great.
I've noticed that you really miss a lot of things.
Yes.
And 1 year is really so cramped up, and we really miss the many things
It's so
that are
true.
quite valuable.
All right, good input. Thanks for that, Doc. Yep. So Dr. Vera thinks that we miss a lot because we go through it so fast, right, so rapidly, and I definitely think there's some truth to that. I know there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, just what I want. Look, just this last Shabbat, the way that we went through and the format we went through, which I'm kind of experimenting with, by the way. But I had, what was it? Maybe, I think 17 pages of notes I didn't touch. You know, just new notes. And this time, I can't access right now my old notes because of the problem we're having with OneDrive. But Bezrat Hashem, I will soon be able to get that, God willing. So, yeah, it's really true. We really could handle. And also, there's a pace issue, too, right? Even if you're just reading the Torah and putting it in your mind and stuff and chewing on things, to break it up into about a third of what we usually do. Now, keep in mind, this is still, it's still more than the first Aliya as far as the quantity of material we're talking about. But you guys, you're advancing pretty well, and it certainly could be a good thing to take a bite on. So I need to, yeah. Any other comments on whether we should switch to the triennial reading? Now, don't get confusing. If you Google the Triennial Cycle, what you're going to get is the Masorti movement's Torah reading cycle, which is different. That's in English the conservative movement, right? The conservative movement is, that's how my dad went through. He went to conservative. The conservative movement is, you still read in 3 years the full Torah, but they do it differently. What they do is, the first year, it's the same Torah portions, but the first year you do 1/3 of it, right? And then you continue through the Torah. So you're always in the same Torah portion that the rest of the world is on, but just like the first third. The next year you do the next third, the next third, and then the last year you do the final third. But I don't like that because it's not sequential. I like the more authentic, older concept of going through the old system. The downside of it is then... Go ahead, speak up.
Rab, that means we will start it after the Varim, the next cycle.
Yeah, the next cycle, cycle through. Right.
So, yeah.
If we do it.
If we do it,
yeah. Yep, and also... And just if we decide to do it with our class, that doesn't mean, even though everybody in this class is from the shul, it doesn't mean that the shul necessarily will do it that way. There's some other things to weigh as far as the actual congregation doing it this way, because there's always the heavy matter of what we call Kalal Yisrael, the sake of Kalal Yisrael, right? So one of the reasons that I teach you guys the Sephardic pronunciation and not my nusach, my tradition, the German pronunciation, the Ashkenazi pronunciation, is because it's for the sake of Kalal Yisrael, we say, right? Because Israel exists again, and this is the way it is in Israel today, and so there's some benefit for being unified, right? There's something to be said for unification, right? All of the sons and daughters around Israel are reading the same thing in the year, etc., right? So if we change away from the Babylonian system, then that's kind of an impact on Kalal Yisrael, right? So that's another thing to consider, right? Yeah, maybe the overachievers can do both. Like do the normal reading and also do the 3 year. But
there's more benefit. But there's more benefit if we do the 3 year cycle.
I agree. There's a huge benefit that would come from that, from slowing down a bit and really chewing. I mean, there's so much we didn't talk about in this last Torah portion, because quite simply we can't. Even if the drash goes on 2 hours, we can't get to this. Yeah. Whereas if we slow down, we really can focus in on it. And also for myself, as far as even recording these readings when you guys don't do it as a class with me, sometimes I record them on my own and add to it. The goal is much more doable if it's a triennial cycle, right? To have this goal, okay, in 3 years, we will then have audio-video aids of the entire Torah recorded and, discussed, and the sages and, the grammar and stuff. It's just much more doable that way. Yeah, I mean, as a pace, right? Pacing through it, rather than scrambling the next 2 years to fill all that in. Yeah. Okay, anybody else have a comment or take on that? Since really, you guys are my most advanced class today, and so, my goal for raising you guys up in Hebrew is that we'll have a much more Hebrew literate kahal, which means, the scope of the sermons can be quite different as well, right? When you have a lot of people understanding Hebrew, that kind of takes us to another level, yeah? what we can discuss and ideas that you have and share and what I can learn from you as well. So, okay, well, if you think about it through the week, just comment over in Hebrew Literature. We have some time to decide. And I'll also...
Will you do that all?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Will you do that also during Shabbat?
That's what I'm trying to decide. Like, if we do it with our class, will we also do it that way on Shabbat as a kahal? Because I think the same benefits we're mentioning just for someone studying Hebrew are also there for the congregation, right? So, yeah, it's not so common to do this. So, we might be kind of trailblazing a little bit. But, yeah. I would like to, if we do it, I'd like for it to all be in sync. I think it'd be useful for everybody to be in sync and doing it that way, right? But
yeah. And I think
Sounds
if
good.
you, yeah, another thing is that if you do the yearly cycle, you know, the interval is so short that, and you would thinking the same lesson again. We heard that last year already. And maybe if you do the 3-year cycle, maybe what you've learned in the first year, then when you repeat the cycle, then what you probably learned during the first cycle would come out something new or something you can come up as well.
that's true. That's a good point as well. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I know myself and the other teachers, they they sometimes like, okay, like I know Daniel he'd be checking his notes for the past few years, and oftentimes we feel like we're supposed to do something new, something fresh, right? Or at least improve upon. It might be nice to have, okay, let's look again at what we did 3 years ago, right? People probably will have forgotten a lot of it. That's a nice point. Also, just the sheer, I'm also thinking always of what we're doing right here and now with us, and also what happens in the future, right? So having that material recorded, having that all available as far as spreading Hebrew learning throughout the entire community of Messianics all around the world, to have that available is something that's really not out there right now. I don't know of any resource that does what we're doing. To get someone through the entire Torah, explaining every word grammatically, explaining every, all that stuff. I think, and for sure, if we do it at this pace, and then even if we shift back sometime or do both back to a full a Babylonian cycle, you still end up with, you're going to have like 10 hours of instruction out there if people want it, right, for each Torah portion, if you break it up. So, yeah. Okay, no problem, Vikoy. Glad you made it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started then. You guys chew on that. I'll be happy to hear more thoughts about it in the Hebrew Literacy group as we go on. So let's go ahead and get started. Who would like to read chapter 26, verse 1 here?
Rabbi, me.
Can I start?
I'm excited.
Okay, he who spoke
Can I
first.
start before my
Okay.
internet goes out again?
Okay, jumping in.
Okay.
Okay, you're first, Ate. You go first. Go for it.
Okay.
You first. You.
Okay. Vehaya ki tavo el haaretz asher Adonai Eloheka noten leka nahalak verishta
Virishta. Yeah.
Verishta veyasavta
Veshavta.
vesha yeah
Close. Yeah, that.
vesha
Veyashavta.
veshayavta
Okay.
ba.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good enough. Okay. Good. Okay, so now let's attack and get the meaning here. Okay, so vehaya, what's that? Vehaya.
And it shall be.
Good. It shall be.
It shall be.
It can be and or when.
Yeah.
When it shall be, or when it shall come to pass. We oftentimes bring it into English this way, right? When it will happen. Ki tavo.
When?
Okay, that can be when. Sure. Or that. By the way, everybody can help. She didn't have to do this alone, this part. That. Oh, that's a terrible T I did there, isn't it? That, okay. Tavo, what's
Ta
tavo?
is you.
Tavo?
Ta. You. You. Ta.
You, something, that's right.
Tambo.
Come on, somebody help her out. This is a team effort, this part. Imperfect. The translation is everybody.
That's a tonto.
Yeah, good.
T.
Yep. So imperfect. So when
You.
you come to El Haaretz.
The land.
Good. Yep. Unto the land. Asher.
Adonai.
I'm sorry, there's some background. Sounds like a vacuum cleaner or something. Yep. Which. So which. Remember the relative
Adonai.
adjective. Yep. Relative pronoun. Which. Adonai.
Your
Elohim.
God.
Good. Notain.
Giving.
Okay. Yep. Giving. So I'll probably say will give.
You.
Will give to you.
Will
Good.
give
Good.
to you.
Yep.
I don't know that next one.
Nachala.
I don't know.
Okay, who wants to help with Nachala? What's Nachala mean?
Inheritance.
Inheritance.
Yes. Inheritance. Is that an A
Oh, your
and C? That looks
tinola.
wrong. I think it's
There.
inheritance. My English spelling is
Good
terrible.
morning.
Good morning.
Very,
I hear the rooster. Good
very.
morning. Virishta. Virishta.
I don't know also.
Okay. Yarash, you might actually know Yarash. Let me colorize it. Look at the root, Yarash. Have you seen Yarash?
And will.
And thou possessed.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So Yarash is kind of an interesting verb. Depending on what the object of the verb is, or the subject, the meaning is like opposite. So if we're talking about the Bnei Israel, it's to take possession, right? Take possession. Goodness, I know that's spelled wrong. Take possession. If you're talking about the Canaanites, it means to dispossess. Right? Okay. All right. So that's good. So in this case, we're talking to the Bnei Israel, right? So it means like Yomar said, like to take possession, maybe something like this. Okay. And what's the mean here with the mapik? What does it say with the mapik, guys? What's going on here? What is that?
Refers to the land.
That's
Female.
The land.
Yeah,
The
that's
land
right.
of it.
Female.
Very good. That's right.
Female.
That's right. It is. It is. It's referring.
Inheritance.
It's referring to the eretz, right?
Land.
Because eretz is what? Masculine or feminine?
Female.
Feminine. That's
Feminine.
right.
It's a feminine.
That's right. She's feminine. So all the way back here. Good. Okay. All right. Veyashavta. What's yashav?
The dwell.
Dwell.
Good.
Dwell.
Good. Yashav means to dwell. What else does it mean? Not here. Dwell is correct here, but what else can it mean?
Sit. To sit.
Oh, strange. I can't draw on the bottom of it. Why? That's bizarre. It won't let me draw on the very bottom of the sheen, so sorry for the sloppy coloring. How very strange. Oh, the bait also I can't draw on the bottom. It's pushing it like a centimeter up above where I'm drawing. How bizarre. Okay, so Yashav is what? To dwell, and what else?
That.
To live.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like dwell. Yeah, dwell or live. What else? What else does it mean?
To sit.
To sit.
Sit. That's right.
Sit.
Sit. Oh, there's a dead region here. Okay, that's why I can't draw it. Wow, look at that. Okay, fine. Okay, so Yashavta, you dwelled. Veyashavta, you will dwell. Bah. Bah, what's bah?
On
In.
it.
In
In
it.
in it.
In
In
it.
the land.
In-
In the land. In
Yes.
the land.
Referring to the land.
That's right. So, very good. Referring again back to the land. Very good. Okay. The bah, the feminine is the land. Okay. Very good. Nice. Okay. And you guys have any comments or questions about that before we go to the next verse? Now Rashi comments that we understand from this verse, the takeaway is that the obligation to bring the first fruits only starts after we enter the land, right? Which you could actually do a remez interpretation, which means, have you ever heard of, like, there's some people, maybe they grew up, you know, they grew up Catholic or they grew up Christian or something, but they're not really believers, right? There's some people like that, right? It's like their identity to be a Christian or to be a Catholic or to be a pravoslavny, they say in Russian, which is Eastern Orthodox. It's by the way, it's funny. The word for Eastern Orthodox in Russian means correct believer. Pravoslavny. So it's like the correct way of believing. Anyway, that kind of humble. The denomination called themselves the correct believers. But so people, they're born into, or this happens with Jews as well too, right? They're born Jewish, but then they don't actually do anything that the Bible teaches. They don't really see the authority, right? And with the various denominations. So I think you can interpret Aram as a deeper understanding. So Rashi says this means the obligation to bring the first fruits doesn't start until after noten lecha nachala, after you've been given your nachala, your inheritance, right? I think we can dig deeper and say this means that those people, it's kind of silly. I've known people like this in the States, where like their parents were Christians or something, and so they would tithe still, right? They would still give like a portion, but they didn't believe in the God of Israel, for example, right? It just was something they had learned to do, and so they would still do it. And I think that this could be applied to that and say, look, if you don't believe, then you should not be tithing. I mean, it's like, because we've been brought out of Egypt, and the obligation starts after we're brought into the land, right? In other words, we have the relationship with God. Being in the land of Israel is oftentimes, it's symbolic of walking with the Lord, right? Walking to and fro, walking around with Him. So, yeah, so there's that. Okay, let's see. Okay, no questions on the verse? I'm going to change slides then. Hey, you did it. This is the end of this part. Watch the next one. To support our projects, you can donate at www.patreon.com/Hebrew Literacy. You can do a single donation or sign up for monthly donations.